Let me take a look now and share with you one of my most favorite graphs. This graph is one, if there's anything today you remember this graph. It actually, I call it the anatomy of a behavior cycle, the anatomy of a behavior model. It talks about behavior from the perspective of acceleration to de-escalation to escalation. Now, let me show you on this graph on the left-hand side. I'm going to walk over to my Elmo. There we go. You notice here we have behavior that peaks. You also know we also have a recovery period. We also have a calm period. This is where we ought to have our school at. Would you agree? This is where we should have our children at. To be able to do that requires skill. It requires support systems to be in place. What PBS does, it actually stops this from happening. It actually stops this from happening because of the prevention model. We do not even get to the trigger because we have positive behavior systems in place that are called antecedents, which is right about here, that if you can imagine this thing just bubbling, effervescent, powerful energy going on there, that's keeping the school together, keeping the climate together, keeping the students thinking about learning in different ways. It is about the culture, the climate, and it's the whole school concept. Okay? So if we implement PBS, 80% of the time we will be taking care of behaviors that are going to be socially deviant or aberrant. All right? Moving right along to my next slide. Let me talk to you about PBS features. So I've made a great case today. I think I have a few converts out there, hopefully, that you are now thinking differently about possibilities. First of all, let me state at the outset, PBS was not invented by me. It was actually an idea proposed by two wonderful guys who I'm actually going to meet in Chicago on October 10th, 11th, and 12th, Rob Horner and George Sugai. Actually, they went to the federal government and they proposed this, and they've been doing years and years of research in PBS. And they came up with this idea and this framework of how to implement this at a very systematic level. So some of the features that are inherent in this model: number one, it involves the local context. It's embedded within the local culture. Number two, and here's that word again, it's that P word. I'm sorry, prevention, prevention, prevention. We are constantly looking at preventing these behaviors from escalating. And you see in the anatomy of the behavior graph, and that's basically what we're looking at. It is evidence-based. One of the questions we have is, well, Dr. Khan, this is all well and good, so where did you get this from? Well, actually, Rob Horner and George Sugai, in some of the recent research articles that they have put forth, they have stated very eloquently and boldly that after implementing, and I'll say it again, read my lips, after implementing PBS in a 3-month period, your ODRs, your office discipline referrals, will decrease by 80%. Wow. That is wonderful. It's like magic, isn't it? Yeah, imagine that going away in 3 months after putting PBS into your schools. And that's done through the systematic way, and that's what I hope to bring to you today. I hope to share with you this model, what it is, what it looks like. It is very practical, very sensible, very reasonable. And here's one of the other questions. I get this from school administrators. If you're a principal out there right now, or a superintendent out there, or director of schools, you might be asking, well, Dr. Khan, this is all well and good, but how much will this cost me? Are we looking at more money here? Well, nothing, nada, not 1 penny, not 1 cent more than what you're doing right now. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. What we do with PBS, we try to find ways of using your school resources in different ways. And by the way, our PBS team at MTSU, which is a grant-funded project to work with the 26 county school systems in Middle Tennessee area, will come to you at no cost in setting up what we call PBS teams to get the results you need to get. Okay? And we do have approximately 12 facilitators who will be ready to come down and assist you. So feel free at the end of this presentation to contact me. I have my contact information on the last page. Now, the next piece is natural implementation. It deals with self-regulation. It deals with giving back self-control. It deals with the natural elements of the school. It is based in the school, and that's when where the intervention is taking place. Hence, it's naturally being implemented. Here's a beautiful word that I want to start to introduce now. It's also a systems change. We're looking at changing your system. We're looking at durability over a sustained period of time. Once we set this in place, we want to make sure that you continue this over and over again, year in, year out. And something else I want to assure you is that if we work with you, we are going to be there to support you and take you through the process in the system. Okay? It is systems. It is definitely systems change. And one of the questions I did have was, one person asked me, said, Dr. Khan, we are doing some of these things. Okay? My next question to that person was, well, I know you're doing some of these components, but what we can do is we pull it all together and we create the system for you. We want to take what you're doing that's good and we want to make it even better. So we're looking at the science of human behavior and looking at it from a perspective that we can define it operationally and we can work with it, okay? At this point, I'm going to open up the floor, the mic, for people in East, West, and Middle Tennessee. If you have a question at this point, I will give approximately 1 minute to anyone that might have a question. And that includes you in the audience as well. All right. Thank you. We will move right ahead. Also, you need to know that this effective behavioral support, we are looking at this, and here are the researchers, also Lewis, Colvin, Sprague, Todd, and Palmer. All of these researchers came up with this model. And what we are presenting to you is actually a federal model that has been scrutinized at the federal level and is now being implemented across the United States. It is very proactive. You need to know it's not a curriculum. It is not a curriculum. Again, I'm going to say the word again. It's focused on prevention. There is a component here that we want to also emphasize, that you could have the great PBS system, but if you do not have good instruction taking place, it's not going to work. You have to PBS is like peanut butter and bread. Peanut butter being the PBS and the bread being good instruction, and makes a great sandwich. Yeah. Put a little jelly on that, Andy. Would be good, huh? Yes. So you can tell that this is a good way to go in terms of one complementing the other. The last piece, it is always going to be looking at scientifically based evidence. This is the word, this is the buzzword for the next 5 years, I think, or maybe more, where the feds, the states, policymakers, educators, decision makers, politicians, they all want empirically sound evidence of what are you doing in the classroom and how you're recording the data and how do you know what you know. I'll say that again. How do you know what you know about that behavior? Where are you getting that data from? So we need to put these things in perspective. So what is PBS? Number one, it is based on strategies. There are specific interventions that we will come out and teach you. It emphasizes outcomes for all students. Now, put a big line around this, folks. It is data-driven, and that's what's beautiful about PBS. Remember I talked about that big gap that we have? This model is data-driven. One of the things that we are going to do this year is we are getting some of our facilitators / PBSI consultants trained in a program called SWIS, SWIS. SWIS is one of the very few products on the market right now that actually systematically organizes and profiles student behavior with charts, graphs, pre-test scores, baseline data, and it's integrated at a very nominal cost. And we are actually going to send some of our consultants, get trained, and bring back training to the state of Tennessee using the SWIS program, SWIS, System-Wide Intervention System, which is a software program that's integrated with a lot of data. So if you want, at any time, you could pull up a profile of any student over a period of time. And what valuable evidence would that make for a school targeting specific behaviors? And beautifully, it also charts graphs showing you what it was like, and also charts, gives you a pre-test and a post-test, okay? So it is a positive approach to actually extinguishing negative types of behaviors. So to put this in perspective, sort of in a graphic organizer with these little web rings, we are looking at two things. One, social competence, and academic achievement. So if you have to define the PBS model, it is dealing with social competence and academic achievement, and our goal is to get the best results for every child in the school. Okay? There are three rings in the center. One is systems, the second one's data, the third one's practices. The first one, systems, we're going to talk to you about 3 levels in a few moments. Then there is this data component, looking at software, looking at how we can integrate this data so that we can make some good decisions as we appropriate money, as we appropriate resources. And on the sides, we have PBS supporting staff behavior, setting up your PBS team to oversee the process. We will come out and train your PBS team at no cost to you. We will also set up some decision-making processes that we will go through. And that's what it is all about, the system. Now, here's what PBS looks like. This is the heart and soul of PBS. PBS, if you think about it, remember I talked about Pareto's law, that 80% of your behavior problems will come from what? 20% of your students? Well, actually, the federal model adopted this type of thinking, and Rob Horner and George Sugar also adopted this type of thinking and said, hey, let's do some targeting, precision work, all right? And that's exactly what they did. So what they did was, if you look at the blue section on your screen, the dark blue section, that's 80% of the students in your school represent. The middle portion, the lighter blue, is 15%. And your top 5%, the yellowish orangey color, that's your top 5. Go ahead and write this down. We're going to actually separate these different levels. The first level, which is the whole thing, this is called primary prevention. It involves 100% of your student body, either at the middle school, elementary, or high school. It involves all students, all staff. So you will have primary prevention measures in place. Now, here's a couple great primary prevention measures that we are putting in schools right now as we speak. These are things, remember, that some teachers are doing. These are things that we are trying to get consistently across the whole school. A primary prevention measure at one school we are working on is something simple as creating consistent morning meetings. How would you like to have to start out a day where you would have morning meetings for about 5 to 10 minutes, where your students get together, the whole school, and it's on your curriculum, it's on your schedule, and it's part of your scheduled activity for the day. 5 to 10 minutes of sharing, 5 to 10 minutes of talking about their feelings, talking and expressing the emotions, 5 to 10 minutes displaying and modeling your rules, 5 to 10 minutes sharing about life, things that are going to be very important to the students. Giving back time. How often do we have students socializing? I'm actually trying to work on a study where I want to find out what percentage of time children are talking to each other meaningfully, engaging each other in a school. I think a lot of our issues comes from, it's such a great opportunity to have kids all in one place, but yet we are so pulled apart by schedules, things that we have to cover. But I think at this morning meeting time, which is a primary prevention, it brings everything together, okay?